Goblin, goblin, it's the green goblin. He's a goblin and he's green, that's why they called him Green Goblin. Look out, I'm painting the Green Goblin! This was a commission, quite a big commission as far as my commissions go. I normally paint somewhat small commissions, and the guy who commissioned me evidently has some kind of fascination or lust or fetish for the Green Goblin. He's commissioned me to paint quite a few Green Goblin pictures over the years, and this is the latest one, and dare I say, the most adventurous and maybe even the best one so far. I was happy with it anyway. He wanted me to paint a whole collection of Green Goblins throughout from the past and history, throughout the past of history of the Green Goblins. And then my own one also. He by request, my own Green Goblin. Right bang in the centre. He didn't say it had to be in the centre, but I think it makes perfect sense to have mine, the best Green Goblin, in the centre. And so that's what I bloody did and am doing right in front of your eyes right now. Underpainting as normal, dark red, and highlighting up green with skin on the skin. Trying to add the texture in there, yeah, because he's got, like, I guess his suit or whatever has like scaly texture on the skin, as implied by various bits of ink work by various artists, which you'll see some of coming up. So yeah, I tried to do that a bit, you know, there's some texture in the highlighting, which is really just blobs of paint as opposed to smoother blobs of paint. The yellow in the teeth, the sort of bone colour, nope, yellow for the eyes, bone colour for the teeth, you stupid idiot. A little bit of like green blended into pink for the tip of the nose, which is always a sort of, I don't know, I paint a lot of goblins. I'm known for being a bit of a goblin boy. And I steal a lot of my stuff from like Games Workshop and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And they usually give their goblins like pink noses and shit. So I stole that, put it into my piece. And blending green into pink isn't necessarily easy, because they're two colours that don't blend naturally. So the middle ground is sort of like a grey colour. But if you use it a little bit and then it looks right when you do it in. One question I did get asked, which I'll mention now as this is, I'm sort of doing the thing that was asked, is kind of about the underpainting but not quite about the underpainting, but it was more the question was something along the lines of, how do you know what to paint when you've painted over the underpainting and all the lines have gone away? Like how do you know where to put the paint? Which is a very fair question, and it's actually something I worried about earlier on in my painting career. But I think, like anything, the more you do it, the sort of quote-unquote better you get at it. You start to paint more on instinct as opposed to with guidelines. I mean, you can see in like the creases in his clothing, for instance, where I've more or less painted over the bulk of the underpainting and the line work underneath. I left a few little bits just to sort of guide myself just a tiny bit, but for the most part it's just a case of going, well, I know this needs to look like this, so a few brush strokes here for some creases and here for some bits of other things, and that's all I can really say is you've just got to sort of do it enough that you know what you're doing. Use the guidelines to help you get to that point, but there will come a time where it tips over to needing the guidelines less and less, and then you can just paint out of thin air. And then highlighting the purple. I like the little curly bits from coming down from his hat. Those are fun to draw and paint. And adding in creases and such to make the cloth look wrinkled as opposed to smooth or scaly like the skin. And then the pumpkin bombs, actually utilising the underpainting, leaving the lower half of the pumpkin bombs with the dark red for the shadow to make them a bit more orb-like, and I think that works. And then I also just happened to leave the underpainting showing through for the strap of his bag, just because I couldn't be bothered to. I could paint it like a pink or a lighter purple, but the dark red of the underpainting is sort of good enough, really. And then the outlines. This bit's fun. Outlines for you Outlines for me. Outlines, he. I don't know why that was necessary. There are times where I think a painting that I've done in particular might look better without any outlines at all. So I think, going to experiment with that in maybe not using no outlines at all, but certainly far fewer outlines. Maybe just for the bits of shadow, like where I've got in the creases of his waist around that area, get those shadows in. And then a few here and there, like around the face, like the deep creases. But then for the most part, leave it just sort of like bold and painterly and see how that works. And I might hate it and then never show anyone and then go back to using outlines like nothing ever happened. You knew it was coming. The white highlights. The final bit of the painting. Doo-doo-doo-doo. But it's not, because there's all this to do still. I was going to use straight light blue for the background, like a sky, because, you know, he flies on his glider through the sky. But I put a little bit of red in there, so it's a little bit more of a violet colour, which, you know, purple fits in with the Green Goblin, done it. Darken that down a little bit towards the centre, and then even more darker in the deep centre, and then darker and darker as we get deeper and lower into the painting. So I tried to give it some sort of gradient. I don't know if it comes across in the final piece, but yeah. And seamlessly blending purple into green, of course, in those middle bits. Some highlights in the background just to bring things out a bit. And then more outlines. This is now the final stretch. So this one is Green Goblins from the 60s, the 1960s cartoon. These were all requested to have Green Goblin from the 60s cartoon. And then on the right-hand side, on the top, is from the 90s cartoon. Get his outlines in. And for all of these background ones, I didn't use the underpainting that I typically use. I just painted their colours onto the white background. Because I knew I wanted them to be sort of really flat colours, and I figured that would help with that. Because they're either from, you know, old animations for the most part, or old comic books where they have basically flat colours with the brushed ink work over the top. So I tried to emulate that trying to emulate the styles of each of these different artists' versions of the Green Goblin. Excuse me, I'm coughing and burping all over the place. This is terrible. Very unprofessional, I swear. And this one is John Romita Sr., who passed away recently. So R.I.P. to that dead fucking bozo. These I'm using reference for these are basically just copying pictures of their work, but with the use of flat colour and no underpainting, I did really try to differentiate their styles from my style. So making my one, the best one, stand out a bit more. So where you've got the flat colours of all these ones in the background, this one by Sal Buscema, and then the you know, more 3D rendered painting of my one standing out, blasting out from the middle of the piece. And I believe that was effective. That's more or less what I was going for, and I think I did achieve that, so I'm glad about that. And I also think I effectively... I was going to say I effectively emulated the styles of each of these different artists, but like I say, I'm just copying pieces of their artwork, so that's going to happen, isn't it? And we've seen I can forge some artwork pretty easily, so, well enough. I don't know about easy. But I do a pretty good job of forging some artwork, so when it comes to copying a few artists' different styles, it's not that big an issue, really. And this one was from a slightly more modern comic book with sort of like computer airbrushed colouring, so I tried to copy that a little bit with the highlighting and ink work and stuff. So I think you can see that. I think that comes across. Getting more of the black in there for the background. There'll be plenty more of that to come. A bit messy on this one, frankly, but this one is Steve Ditko's Green Goblin, old comic book Green Goblin. He's got quite a gnome-like hat, which is quite funny. And yeah, again, just trying, I guess, to copy that old comic book ink brushwork, where they do use quite broad brushstrokes here and there, especially in the cloth. So I tried to get some of that in there. And then this final one by Humberto Ramos, quite a very modern one, and he's got quite a modern take on the suit, almost having like chainmail armor plating here and there. So that was quite an interesting one. And I think he used like in the image I'm copying from, like watercolors or ink washes for the colors. So I tried to. Oh, and that's where it cuts off because my phone ran out of battery and stopped recording. So luckily it was right at the end anyway. So that's convenient, I guess. But yeah, I tried to sort of get the different painting styles, and well, that's that, innit? Oh, brilliant! Oh, wow! Look at all the goblins. I did that. I did it. I did it. I did it. And yeah, I'm really proud of this piece. I think it came out really nice, especially my one in the centre, which is the best one.